Greetings, good afternoon, and good morning. This is MBS Mythic back with another video. And of course, if you like this content, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. It really helps me out, and I appreciate it if you could leave me one. Alright, intro aside, let's get right into the meat and potatoes. We're going to talk today about the beauty and the artistic direction of the old Fallout games. And when I say the old Fallout games, I really do just mean 1 and 2. Sorry, Tactics fans. And no, we're not discussing that piece of shit. You know what I'm talking about. We're not going over that. So let's get right into it. Fallout 1 came out when most of us were probably kids, some of you maybe not even born yet. And as most of you know, Fallout 1 is, of the entire series, really the darkest, the grittiest, and the most high stakes of all the Fallout games. And when I say high stakes, I mean right off the bat, it shows you what the problem is and what the consequences are if you are not successful in your quest. And I am not here to argue the semantics of which Fallout games have the most dire situation. To me, this one does, so we're just gonna roll off that. And to fill in those of you who aren't aware, Fallout is of course, a post-nuclear role-playing game released in October of 1997, and of course the game was designed by the all-time famous Fergus Urquhart and designed by Christopher Taylor, produced by Tim Kaine. Obviously, these people would go on to work on other games. Fergus would go on to find Obsidian Studios in 2003 as well. Of course, the Fallout designer that most people know, being Chris Avellone, wasn't involved in the project until Fallout 2, but is probably more well known for his work in Fallout New Vegas. But while these people are important, they did not have a giant role in the art direction of the original Fallout games. This work would go towards Leonard Byorski and Gary Platner, respectively, for Fallout 1 and Fallout 2. So we're going to go ahead and start off with Byorski. Byorski was the lead art director of Fallout 1 and was one of the few people that actually gave negative opinions once Bethesda bought the IP in 2004. He would go on to say, "To be perfectly honest, I was extremely disappointed that we did not get the chance to make the next Fallout game. This has nothing to do with Bethesda, it's just that we've always felt that Fallout was ours, and it was just a technicality that Interplay happened to own it. It sort of felt like our child had been sold out to the highest bidder, and we just had to sit by and watch. Since I have absolutely no idea what their plans are, I can't comment on whether or not I think they're going to take it in the right direction or not." Just going off this quote alone, you can tell Byorski just really loves the series. This is one of his brainchilds, of course, and as an art director, I can definitely understand and feel his, I guess you could say, pain towards watching something he loved and something he created, as in his own words said, was sold to the highest bidder. To me, this shows that to them, or at least to Interplay or the people that worked at Interplay, that Fallout wasn't just another project. It was like their brainchild. It was their baby. It was their bread and butter. And losing it to a lot of them was something that they just found to be somewhat upsetting. And you can definitely understand that, and you can definitely see that when you look at a lot of these people and their desire to work on new Fallout games and their drive to go and basically persist and work on them in the future. So, moving forward past my incoherent, stupid rambling, what I'm trying to say is that Fallout is a game that has had so much tender love and care put into it. It's anything but cookie cutter. It is the love child and a love letter to those of us who love the post-apocalyptic genre. To me, the Fallout series has always been amazing because it has the perfect level of dark comedy, humor, seriousness, even pop culture references. The amount of each is just right. And that is something I find really respectable because a lot of series, a lot of games, and just a lot of any entertainment in general, they usually go overboard on one or the other, whether it be references, comedy, or attempts at comedy. A lot of the time, they do not nail it, and it just falls flat. The Fallout series, in most cases, however, is not really that way. Even in some of the newer ones, the comedy does land, and there is a good balance of pop culture references, dark comedy, humor, etc., etc. And circling back to our old topic, which was Fallout 1 and its beauty, the old Fallout games in general really love using pop culture references. It's something you can't really get away from in either game. But in my opinion, the artistic direction of Fallout 1 and its mix of pop culture, as well as, throwing that retro futuristic lifestyle that is lived throughout the 21st century and eventually disposed of after the Great War, and how it continues on into, the centuries following the war, is just amazing to me. It was done so well. It has so much tender love and care put into it. It's actually just like astounding that a game like this exists. And of course, this is talking from the viewpoint of someone who has played, mostly modern games and who plays, everything, modern, current, etc., etc. And it's just baffling to me how much, tender love and care was put into this game. When you explore the world of Fallout 1, you'll never not find something interesting. No matter where you go, everything is so interesting and everything looks so interesting, even with these bad graphics. Something so simple as the ghoul model is just so good to look at. It just looks so nice. It looks so horrific. It gets the point across. And that's exactly what Fallout 1 is about. It's about making light of dark, but showing you just how dark things can actually get. Something like the desolation of the LA Boneyard is just something so crazy to me. It's something that no game has really ever gotten just the same. Because when you walk into the LA Boneyard, you know exactly where you are. You are in the ruins of Los Angeles, one of the hub cities of the United States. And to see it in such disrepair, literally for miles, this city is just scorched clean with the bodies, the skeletons, the bones that give it its namesake. It feels like no other game has really gotten something that dark across in such a light-hearted way. It also nails something down, just the degradation of society after a nuclear conflict to basically pure animal instinct. The fact that most humans find it commonly acceptable to refer to the common population as tribals or basically savages is just something so interesting to me. And the way the Fallout series does it is in a way that's like poking fun at it. And I think that that's crazy that, you have these things in these subject matters that are so dark and so dreadful, but at the same time, we're able to laugh at it. And it's a really good social commentary on just how we perceive things and how something so quick can be shown to us. And in the back of our minds, we know it's wrong, but in the present, it's like, yeah, those people are tribal, and it's like, there's no sympathy for these people. It's just they're tribal, they're raiders, fuck them, get rid of them. And from an outsider's perspective looking into this series, it's like, oh yeah, it's fake or whatever. But then you think, wow, real life could kind of end up like that, couldn't it? Getting to this point where our morals are so degraded that people are just kind of looked on as animals or even pests. It's just crazy to me that the direction of this game, pushes for that narrative that people are at this point where just nobody cares anymore. And you might just be saying, Mythic, where are you going with this? What the fuck's the point? And I'm getting to that. The reason I thought of the point of this video was because someone said in the comments of one of my past videos, I didn't like Fallout because it was ugly. And my response is, well, yes, the game, its graphics look ugly, of course. The game is approaching 24 years old now. But then I also thought to myself, I think the game is ugly on purpose. It's not really supposed to be a beautiful game or a game that you look at and it's it's not supposed to be a painting. It's supposed to be a window into an alternate reality that could easily be our own reality. Fallout, in its essence, tried to emulate our society, but in a retro-futuristic kind of way, and it definitely multiplied it. It's not like the world is as jaded or as cunning or secretive as the world of the Fallout universe, but it is something that could definitely become a possibility in the future, and there's really no denying that. In my opinion, Fallout looks ugly not because there was a lack of design or because there was a lack of care put into it. It's actually quite the opposite. It looks ugly because the game had so much thought into it, and it wished to emulate and basically be almost like a social commentary level project that it shows the world is ugly. Not just Fallout, not just the games, but the world is an ugly place. And I think the art style and the art direction of the Fallout games really nails that. But while the world is an ugly place, there is also a lot of beauty in the world. There is a lot of things to be happy about, and there is a lot of things that we take for granted. To me, one thing that I thought was beautiful was the cathedral. When you look at the cathedral, I'm sure many of you will be like, oh, it's this ugly 2D polygon stupid looking thing, etc, etc. But if you take the time to actually look at the cathedral, like say find the video, pause it, whatever, you will see that the cathedral itself had so much thought, so much design, so much artistic talent put into its creation that it's actually quite crazy. One thing about the cathedral that I always thought looked really cool were the windows. I thought the windows always looked really neat, and it really shows that the cathedral itself is a place of warped beauty. It shows immediately that this is a place where bad things are happening or bad things are afoot. As the player, you can sense that almost immediately from not only the music, but just the design of the level. That this is either, one of the final places of the game or the final place. It's pretty good in contrast to the new Mariposa military base, which is somewhat generic in my opinion. But for the most part, both places do have their own fitting end within the Fallout universe. You have the somewhat soulless government installation, and then you have this beautiful religious cathedral that is used to spread the ideology of the Master. And even things down to Shady Sands, Junktown, the LA Boneyard, the Slave Pits, they all really have a really good art style. Each one has their own special design, and not even including the characters, just the world itself is such a unique and beautiful place. Of course, the desert is the desert, that is what it is. There are some random encounters thrown into the desert that kind of mix things up in Fallout 1, but not really. A lot of the desert is very samey, but it does look really nice and does fit the backdrop of the game because the game, it does take place in a nuclear wasteland that is also, a desert. The landscape around that area is mostly desert and mostly sand, so it makes sense to what it is. Every town oozes a certain level of charm. It's really interesting. Every single town has a purpose. There's no filler. They all have quests, people that live with them, and they all feel alive too. So not only is the town beautiful to look at, it's filled with people, it's filled with life, and you really feel like you're entering an inhabited area when comparing it to the rest of the uninhabited wasteland. And to sum it up, I think these games are beautiful not because they're, coming out of a painting or they're something that's so photo-esque. They're beautiful because they capture the reality that the characters are living in. It's not just, things don't exist just for the sake of existing. Things exist because they should exist or because it makes sense for them to exist. And that's one of the things I really respect about the old Fallout games, and that's kind of why I find it so beautiful. Because yes, the game is a lot of shades of yellow, brown, gray, green, and a lot of these more, dreary or depressing colors, but at the same time, it brings so much life to itself that you can tell that there's just so much work, so much effort, so much charm put into even the little things. And going to something as stupid as like Bob's Iguana Bits, you look at that like stand and how much like effort and work was put to design something like that, and then make quest lines around that, and take something so simple and turn it into something so sinister, something that is just downright evil. I think that's what is beautiful about the old Fallout games. It turns those things that could be mundane or normal and shows that they can have a darker side, or can be more than what meets the eye. And that's what Fallout 1 does great. And that's what makes it beautiful, is everything is subtle. Nothing really jumps out at you too much. Obviously, you have things like super mutants. The first time you meet one, it's crazy. You see like the design, and especially the master, the first time you see him, he hits you like a brick wall. He is a very memorable character, and for a lot of people is one of the most memorable Fallout villains, myself included. That's, generally why I like Fallout 1 more than Fallout 2, is because I think the master, the nuance, and just everything about the game is so beautiful. And it really shows the human spirit, the human idea of moving on even when all hope seems lost. That's one thing I've always loved about the Fallout series. Maybe some of you disagree, but this is just my opinion. Anyway, guys, I appreciate the watch through. If you have any comments, please feel free to leave them down below. Good, bad, leave those likes, those dislikes, subscribe, all that good shit. Love you guys. Peace. Psst. Also, I'm probably going to do a part 2 at some point, so, stick around for that. Love you guys.